Every morning, millions of people take medication without really knowing what it does inside their bodies. They rely on these drugs being safe and helpful. Many of them were prescribed by their doctor. And of course, there are medications that save lives and are absolutely necessary in certain situations. But there are also some that, in my opinion, do more harm than good, especially when they are taken carelessly or over a longer period of time. Today, I want to talk specifically about some of these medications that, as a doctor who has been practicing for over 42 years, I avoid whenever possible. Because my experience often shows me that medications simply suppress symptoms instead of addressing the actual problem. And that's exactly the point where things can actually become dangerous. Because if we don't understand what our body is trying to tell us, we take away its ability to heal itself. And that can have massive consequences in the long run. Of course, this is not meant to be a general demonization of medication. But I firmly believe that it's crucial to look into the background to become aware of what a medication actually does in the body, what alternatives exist, and whether it's even necessary in the given situation to take a medication of this kind, some of which I will now present. Let's start with the first medication. And it's one that probably all of you know. These are the flu and cold remedies. I think it's completely counterproductive to take medication for a cold. What do? They prevent the immune system from doing its job. A cold comes, stays, and then goes away again if you just let it. But if you take a combination medication, for example, you suppress your body's natural healing processes and sabotage it even further. One of these combination drugs, for example, contains paracetamol. I think most of you are familiar with that. It's taken for pain, fever, and so on. Then it also contains caffeine and additionally vitamin C. Okay, once again, paracetamol lowers fever, but what does fever do? Fever is a completely natural defense reaction of the body, which it uses to effectively fight off viruses and also bacteria, for example. Caffeine. What does caffeine do to you? It's supposed to keep you awake and help you stay productive. But if you're sick, you should rest. So it doesn't make any sense at all to trick your body into thinking it has energy. It doesn't really have. On the contrary, it's completely confused. And then there's the vitamin C. Great, I would say, but vitamin C needs a certain amount. And the dose contained in this preparation is much too low to have any positive effect in the end. So what is the result? Your body is simply prevented from getting healthy in a natural way. All right, next medication that I absolutely avoid, those are laxatives, especially when they are taken regularly. I myself have never taken a laxative in my life, simply because I know what they do to the body. The intestines become sluggish and lazy over time, and because it gets used to having the work done for it, it stops moving. And then you can't go to the bathroom at all anymore. At the same time, laxatives can massively disrupt your fluid and mineral balance, which in turn can lead to heart rhythm disturbances, simply because the laxative causes you to lose way too much potassium and magnesium as well. Of course, it can happen that because of a change in diet, a diet that might not be the one I would recommend, or while on vacation, you just can't go to the bathroom and have problems. But there are also gentler alternatives for that, in my opinion. For example, a small enema, you can always take that with you wherever you go. Or a belly massage also feels good. Putting a hot water bottle on your stomach. And also targeted movement. And of course, drink plenty of water. A fiber-rich diet with lots of whole grain products and legumes. All of this helps to naturally get your bowels moving and keep them active. Now, medication number 3. I'm also especially careful with antibiotics. Of course, there are situations where they are necessary. For example, in cases of severe bacterial infections. So here's a reminder for you again. With viral infections like colds, antibiotics don't help at all. They don't work on viruses. They can only kill bacteria. That's why they're called antibiotics. But what many people don't know is that antibiotics aren't harmless for other reasons as well. They don't just kill the harmful bacteria, but also the good ones. And what's the problem? A large part of our immune system is actually located in the gut. And when the gut flora gets out of balance because of antibiotics, we just become more susceptible to infections. And that's exactly what happens when you take antibiotics too often. I still remember in my practice, I had so many parents who came in with their children and they got antibiotics every 6 to 8 weeks because the child couldn't get better on their own. Parents feel more secure when a medication is used, especially an antibiotic. But as I said before, it doesn't help and it weakens the child. And that's why they keep getting sick. And that's why it's important to just go through a cold with your child at that moment. And it was always so nice to observe that these children who otherwise used to get antibiotics up to 6 or even 8 times a year, maybe only needed 1, if it was even necessary at all. And I just want to say that again. You have to handle the prescription and also the use of antibiotics extremely responsibly. And what I already said earlier is that it's just terrible when these antibiotics are prescribed for viral infections. Because again, viruses can't be fought with antibiotics at all. But because many people insist on getting a prescription, doctors still resort to prescribing this group of medications far too often, at least in my opinion. The consequences are dramatic. More and more bacteria are becoming resistant, so antibiotics eventually stop working. And that is one of the biggest threats to our health in the next and coming decades. So the fourth group of medications, those are the painkillers. I just want you to use these painkillers consciously. Of course, there's absolutely nothing wrong with taking a painkiller every now and then if you're really in pain. But many people now reach for things like ibuprofen way too quickly. And by the way, with long-term use, that can actually become really dangerous. Did you know that ibuprofen can seriously damage your kidneys and stomach lining? Or that painkillers themselves can actually cause pain? I found that extremely interesting when I looked at the package insert many, many years ago. For example, it says that taking painkillers can cause medication-induced headaches. So anyone who takes painkillers regularly can also become dependent on them. Not just with painkillers from the group of opioid analgesics, which have an extremely high potential for addiction. There are also people who now take an ibuprofen tablet every day because it just makes them feel better overall. But they don't even realize that they're already dependent on it. At the latest, if someone takes more than 10 tablets of ibuprofen or paracetamol per month over several months, that's a real problem and should be discussed with a doctor. Number 5 is a medication that I see as particularly critical. It's cholesterol-lowering drugs. First and foremost, the so-called statins. These medications are among the best-selling drugs worldwide. And why is that? Because millions of people have high cholesterol levels. Exclamation mark, question mark. But the question is, are these limits even set correctly? And above all, do you really need medication, or can you regulate your cholesterol level through proper nutrition or more exercise? The answer is very clear. Yes, that's possible. For example, oatmeal, just to mention it briefly, is really good for lowering cholesterol levels. There are good studies on this, but also a plant-based diet and healthy fats. All of this can help lower cholesterol levels without having to take medication. And the problem with statins is that they not only inhibit cholesterol production, but also the body's own production of coenzyme Q10. This coenzyme is crucial for our cellular energy. Many people who take statins complain about muscle and joint pain. That's a very well-known side effect of these medications. This is due to the fact that this medication deprives the body of exactly this important enzyme. Now comes medication number 6, and this one is a real classic. I'm really curious to see if the people behind the camera will perk up when I talk about it, because many people underestimate it. It's nasal sprays. The active ingredient in nasal sprays, called xylometazoline or oxymetazoline, causes the blood vessels in the nasal mucosa to constrict. And that reduces the swelling, and you can breathe freely again. Sounds pretty cool at first, doesn't it? But if you use this spray for several days, it can actually have the opposite effect. Because as soon as the effect wears off, the nasal mucosa swells up even more than before. That's called the rebound effect. And that's the reason why so many people, as you can probably imagine, become dependent on nasal spray. I've seen countless patients in my practice who couldn't go without nasal spray for months or even years. So what's the better alternative? Yes, please stop using it and instead use a simple sea salt spray or a nasal rinse with a saline solution. That way you can gently relieve a stuffy nose. And finally, I want to give you something very important to take with you. Medications are not fundamentally bad. They can save lives in many cases, relieve pain, and treat serious illnesses. And when they are truly necessary, it's good that we have them. But the crucial thing is they should always be used with care. In our modern world, it has become far too easy to take a pill for every little symptom without asking why the body is sending this signal in the first place. But that's exactly the key. Our body is not a machine that constantly needs to be repaired, but a highly intelligent system that, in most cases, knows best on its own what to do. Such an important topic, and that's why I would like to ask you to share this video. You will be doing something good for so many people.